Hey folks, it's Tom here. Welcome back to another review from the Whiskey Voyager. If you're new to the channel, I do whiskey reviews from all over the world, whether it be Scotch whiskey, Japanese whiskey, American whiskey, bourbon, Irish, or any other kind of whiskey. So check back on my channel when you can to see some updates on some new tasty things to try. So today I'm going to review a Campbeltown whiskey, a single malt Scotch over here. This is Glen Scotia 15. So it's a 15-year whiskey here, non-chill filtered, which is nice. It doesn't say if any coloring has been added, so unfortunately we can assume probably artificial coloring, but at least non-chill filtered, which is good. It's also bottled at 46% ABV, which is really good in terms of the integrity of the bottling. We're looking for 46% or up, and that's really good. So this is from Campbeltown. So if you're not familiar with some of the different regions of Scotch whiskey, perhaps you're new to Scotch or you're just getting into it, then we'll go over that really quickly. So this one right here, this Abbey Lower that I reviewed last week, is from the Speyside region. This over here, this Clynelish, is an example of a Highland region, which is the largest region geographically. However, the Speyside region produces the most Scotch in all of Scotland. They have the most distilleries. Over here, this is Lagavulin 16. This is an example of an Islay whiskey. So we say that the island of Islay and the islands are a region we put together. And then finally, we have the Lowlands. This is an Auchentoshan 12, which is one of just three distilleries left in the Lowland region. And the fifth one is Campbeltown over here. Now Campbeltown is really there's kind of an interesting history to it. So, back over 100 years ago in the 1800s and at the turn of the century to the start of the 1900s, Campbeltown was the biggest producing region of single malt Scotch anywhere in the world. Kind of like Speyside is today. Campbeltown was really, really big. There was dozens of different distilleries. They were producing all different flavor profiles and styles, and it really helped popularize single malt Scotch and to produce Scotch at a large enough volume to get it out to a greater audience than had seen before. So Campbeltown is pretty important historically in the evolution of single malt Scotch whiskey. So there's you may have heard of Springbank. Springbank is a very famous Campbeltown distiller. But a lot of people have not heard of Glen Scotia, which is right next door. If you ever visit Scotland, you should hit up Springbank, and also make sure to visit Glen Scotia because they have some really tasty stuff which should not be overlooked. So this is what I'm focusing on today, and that's just a little bit of history about it. But let's go ahead and focus on the review of Glen Scotia 15. So I'm going to pour myself a dram here in my Glencairn glass. If you can find these, then try to pick up yourself a glass. This is I find the best way to drink whiskey. It allows some air to get into there to kind of open up the flavors and the oils and to really allow the flavors to bouquet, just like adding a little bit of water does, but not too much air that it gets overexposed. And then when you nose it, the glass helps to kind of channel and focus those flavors, so you're getting a stronger, more concentrated experience. So I find this is the best way to drink whiskey. It's got a nice nose. It's a little bit more subtle than the Abbey Lower that I tried last week, at least on the nose. Some sweetness, detecting some fruit notes in there. A little bit of woodiness. It's nice, a little bit subtle, but it does have a nice nose. Now let's give it a taste. While it's not quite as thick and syrupy as this Abbey Lower is, it's got a good mouthfeel. It's not thin by any means. Nice mouthfeel, some really good flavors in there. More fruits than you can get on the nose. I'm seeing darker fruits, so some plums, definitely some grapes in there, maybe some blackberries. It's definitely a little bit of those slight red wine kind of flavors in there, but it's definitely a Scotch, but it's got a little bit of that red wine notes in there as well, plus some nice vanilla. Let's see. Some good oakiness, that was the woodiness I was smelling from the nose. Good oak flavor, vanilla. And then on the finish, there's this big burst of malted barley, malted sugars that rise up for a nice, enjoyable sweet finish that's not too sweet, but a really, really pleasant finish from this one. So it's fairly, there's lots of flavors, it's got some good complexity, a lot more than other single malts that I find, especially at this price point. And then it all kind of crescendos in the finish with a really good burst of flavors. The finish isn't super long, so it doesn't drag on and on and on and on for many minutes, but it has a really nice concentrated finish, which I like. Now let's see how it interacts to some water. It's 46%, so I'm going to water it down a little bit here to around 43% and see how it is. But I'm not going to add a whole lot because it's not cask strength. We're not talking 55, 60, 65%. It's only 46, so it just needs a little bit, and see if that affects things a little bit. I recommend always trying it completely neat, completely straight first without any water added. See how you like it, and then adding a little bit of water, and then tasting it again with whatever whiskey you're trying, tasting a second time with some water, and seeing how it differs. Some whiskey needs quite a lot of time in the glass to open up when you add that water, sometimes as much as 20 or 30 minutes or more. Some whiskeys open up pretty quickly. So while I won't keep you waiting for 20 minutes, I'm going to give it some time here to open up and see how it is. So this is not a really super common whiskey. It's not like Glenlivet or Glenfiddich that you can find basically anywhere in the world, really. But if you do go to a whiskey shop, they're likely to have it. If you go to a well-stocked liquor store or perhaps supermarket, they might have it. So it's not very rare, but I would say it's less common than some of the other ones. And it will cost differently, different prices based on where you're at. But for me, this cost around $75. So, mid-price point for Scotch. It wasn't super expensive, but it wasn't on the kind of, fully budget-oriented price point. So, medium, moderately expensive. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about if you're going to try to find this one and pick up a bottle. I think this one did benefit from some water. It was definitely nice in its original form, but adding a few drops of water, the flavors come to the surface a little bit more. It's the same flavors from before, but they're more concentrated, they're more noticeable, and they've opened up a lot more. So that's really nice to see. More fruits, more vanilla, more oak, nice malted sugar finish to it, medium length finish, some plums, grapes, blackberries. But don't think that this is a super fruity whiskey. It has got some fruit in it, but it's really well balanced, and it's pretty complex too. I'm noticing some chocolate in there, which is nice as well. It's got a bit of a saltiness in there, a nice sweet finish, but it has some saltiness to balance that out as well. It's not super sweet like this Abelauer is here. It's definitely toned back with additional complexity, some salt, and some other flavors as well. A very, very pleasant whiskey. All right. Well, it's time to give it a score. If I like to score the whiskeys, to give it a score out of 100, 100 would be a perfect score. And the way I like to do that is do it in 3 parts. The first part is the taste and the nose. That's scored out of 80, maximum of 80 points that you can achieve. And the second is the price ratio. You know, what's the value of this? Like, is it a good value? Is it a good bargain? That's given, you can get up to 10 points for that. And finally, the quality and integrity of it. Is it watered down a great deal, down to 40%? You know, is it chill filtered? Is artificial color added? Is there no age statement? That would, if all those were true, you'd get a very low score for the quality and integrity, maybe 1 point out of 10. But in this case, luckily that's not true. So this is non-chill filtered, which is really, really nice. It's 46%, which is true to the integrity of what a Scotch should be, 46% or higher. It has an age statement, 15 years, which is really good. However, likely, if you look at it up to the light, likely artificial coloring. Some artificial caramel coloring was added. We don't know how much, but that's a little bit unfortunate. It's not, you know, it's not a huge deal. It's not a make it or break it, but that was added, so it won't get a perfect score, but it will score pretty highly for the other reasons, and it's got the age statement, which is important. So in terms of the quality, out of 10, I'm going to give it 8. It's done quite well, but not perfect. Out of 10 in terms of price, you know, value for your money, this was $75 for me. It's a 15-year-old single malt Scotch. I think that's reasonably priced. It's certainly not a steal. It's not a great bargain, you know. Pick up a case of these. That's not what I'm saying here. But I think it's decent, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10, as it is a 15-year Scotch. And then finally, on the taste and the nose, I do like this one. It's not the best I've ever had, but it's got some good complexity and some good flavors. Yeah, I'm going to give this a 74 out of 80. So if we do the math, we add that up, 74, 7, and 8, that will be 89 out of 100. And there you are. This is for Glen Scotia 15. And I look forward to seeing you next time. There you are, folks. Once again, my name is Tom. This is the Whiskey Voyager YouTube channel, and I will see you again next week. Thank you.